Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. I hope you're having a wonderful day. You're listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tersh Blissett, and I am not sitting virtually next to Josh, my co-host. Josh is actually working on EOS with his business or something. Probably not as important as this, obviously. And so he's not going to be with us today on any of our recordings. But I am super excited to have Miss Ruth King on the show. She is a returning guest. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Miss Ruth has been on our show more than anybody else, between being at the Women HVACR events and just being on the show in general. So I'm super appreciative. For those of you who don't know this, I don't even know if Miss Ruth knows this, really, but the first time I was ever on a podcast was for Brian Orr's podcast, which is HVAC School Podcast, and he was doing a week-long segment on business. And he if you don't know Brian's podcast, his podcast is basically very technical for technicians and entry-level technicians, advanced technicians. And I learned a ton. I still learn a ton every time I listen to Brian's podcast. But there was a week there where he said, you know what, I'm going to talk about business. I don't talk about business very often on the podcast, but I'm going to have Tersh on, and I'm gonna have Ruth King on. And so we recorded a couple episodes and for both of us, and he released them all in 1 week time period. And that's actually how I got introduced to Miss Ruth King. It was being recorded at the same time as she was for Brian Orr's podcast. So a super huge shout out to Brian for making that introduction and just introducing me to Miss Ruth King's world. And that had to have been into middle to beginning of 2017, maybe 2016 time frame when that took place. So that was a really cool experience. But for those of you who don't know, Miss Ruth, she just rolled off the board Women in HVACR. She has been pivotal in making Women in HVACR what it is, as a success it is. And but she does financial coaching and talks about finances a lot. Has a book out that came out September 5th, if I'm not mistaken, called 101 Dumb Financial Business Mistakes. 101 financial mistakes business owners make and how to avoid them. My dyslexia kicked in there for a second. And really cool fun fact is that it came out at number 1 on the bestsellers list. So that's a huge shout out to Miss Ruth for that. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, different things today. We're going to talk about the book, and then a new product that she actually has called FinanciallyFit.business. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how that can help you as a business contractor. Numbers are something that business owners just don't typically have fun time talking about. I feel like that anyways. A lot of the contractors that I speak with, numbers are not their favorite thing. That's kind of their Achilles heel, and so I love talking to Miss Ruth about that whenever we can. And so real quick, Josh, Ruth said that you get 6 lashes with a wet noodle for missing today's episode. Just so you're aware of that next time I see you, in case you don't hear this live. Hopefully you didn't hear that so that you get surprised whenever I do see you. But before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to the people who make these shows possible, who have partnered up with us. I'm going to start with UpFrog, Justin and Noah, who are the founders of UpFrog, which is an amazing organization. They do a lot, chatting with internal chatting with your team. Online pricing is a big one that they're pushing right now, and they've been doing a great job with that, putting your prices on your website. And I know that's kind of taboo in our industry, but they have really good talks about that and how to make that successfully work for your business. Next, Sarah, Billy and his team over at Sarah. It's an amazing CRM that's growing by leaps and bounds. There's tons of people who are joining Sarah. We recently have onboarded with Sarah, and it's I speak highly of Billy's episode. Another fun fact, our highest downloaded and listened to episode is from Miss Ruth King. Second place is Billy's episodes with when we're talking about efficiency in our business, running our service business efficiently. And Sarah's one of the tools that Billy uses to run an efficient service business. So huge shout out to their team. Next, I would like to say, give a shout out to Copeland Compressors. They do a ton of training to make sure that your technicians know how to properly diagnose a compressor, how compressors work. It's the engine inside of a air conditioning unit, and a lot of technicians have no clue how it actually works. So if you have any questions about training in general, they have a train the trainer type setup, and we're going to have them on the show here pretty shortly to talk some more about that. But huge shout out to them. Thank you so much for helping support this channel and our show. Last and definitely not least, Company Cam is a digital asset management tool. If you've never heard of Company Cam, it's great. Actually, I have an integration between Sarah and Company Cam, so that every time a new job scheduled, a new project is created in Company Cam. So jobs created in Sarah, projects created in Company Cam, and Company Cam collects all of that metadata and geotags, and then can upload it to your website. So then Google sees the places that you are working, and it's just very helpful for your Google listings and rankings and stuff. But if you have any questions about any of that, ask Josh. Don't ask me. He knows a lot more about that stuff than I do. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show. I know that I will, because I always enjoy talking with Miss Ruth. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. Go to servicebusinessmastery.com, and you'll find there's a button at the bottom right where you can click that button, record a conversation, and then send it to Josh and I. It comes to our phones, and then we can respond to that message. But servicebusinessmastery.com. Oh, and if you're not already subscribe to the podcast, because, just because. But yeah, let's get started with the show.
Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Hey, Miss Ruth, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Tersh. Great to be back again.
Absolutely. I get you all to myself today. So
I know.
That's great. So for those who are listening for the first time, if you've never watched our podcast or listened to our podcast, it's a podcast focused on service business owners. When I say service business, I'm primarily talking about cross the threshold home service businesses, plumbing, HVAC, electrical companies. And it's focused on helping the business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. One of our targets is to help answer some unasked questions that you may have about the business. And having Miss Ruth on the show, that's one of there's a lot of questions pertaining to financials that hopefully we get answered on, not necessarily all on today's show, but if you are watching this live, and feel free to ask questions in the live stream, the chat, and we'll get those answered for you on today's show. With that being said, though, if someone's watching and listening to this episode and they don't know who you are, Mr. Ruth, can you do an introduction of yourself and your background?
Okay, happy to. I appreciate that. Let me first comment on something you said about financials being a bugaboo or whatever else it is. All of you on here are probably been out in the field, all that sort of fun stuff. And now think about the first time you ever looked at a wiring diagram. For those of you who are HVAC and electrical, for those of you who are plumbing, think about the first time you ever looked at a schematic for a house. I mean, you looked at it and went, I don't know what this is.
It's a bunch of lines.
You've got it. You've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that what did you do? You learned it. Because you had to do it for your job, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So financials are the same thing. It's like in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But what got you in business, i.e. the ability to plumb, to do electrical, to do HVAC, to service, repair, replace, maintain, is not going to keep you in business.
Yeah.
What's going to keep you in business is understanding the financial side. So think back to that first wiring diagram or that house schematic and think about how much time you spent to do it. And I promise you financials are easier, at least from my perspective. Okay.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely correct, because the financials, there's not as many variables there as there are with
Not
schematics.
even close.
Right.
I mean, yeah, think about it. Financials were developed by the Venetian monks in the late, either somewhere between 1200 and 1300. And I mean, they didn't have QuickBooks, they didn't have a calculator, they didn't have a slide rule. So they had to make it really, really easy. And I mean, if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, guess what? You can do books.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at all these crazy little symbols on a wiring diagram or something.
Absolutely. And know what they are and just, yeah.
And how to translate them into the real world.
Oh, right. Exactly. So let me ask you this then, because I was actually talking to someone offline yesterday about, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, CRMs in general. Just and some people use like QuickBooks Online as their CRM. But for me, I was like, if you're able to use QuickBooks as your CRM, I feel like you can use any CRM out there, because there are the technical jargon, as not technical, accounting jargon is very confusing to someone like me, because you got debits and credits and you have to understand that the differences. Like, is there
credit is left side, credit is right side. That's it.
I know. I get that. I understand. I mean, I get it, but I don't understand why. It's why use the jargon? Why use the jargon that's, or is it the bank's fault that they call a debit card instead of, whatever? Like, whenever I associate things, I really have to stop and think, especially if I haven't done it in a while, and I go through and look at QuickBooks, like, completely like open book here, like on the podcast business side of things. We don't have a bookkeeper, quote unquote bookkeeper, because we don't have a lot of ins and outs there. Yeah. So like I do it, and so then I have to put my brain back into bookkeeping or just data entry stuff. And I'm like, debit, like, oh man, like why does this have to be termed this way? Like, and it's like, answer that for me.
Okay. So what's confusing you is the bank's debits are our credits and our debits are the bank's credits. And so when you go to the bank and you say, I'm going to deposit my check, what do they say? They say, I'm going to credit your account, which to them is a liability, because if you deposit $1,000, they have to be able to make that $1,000 available to pay bills. All right. So it's a liability to them, but it's an asset to you. So your debit is their credit. And then when you take out that loan, it's a liability to you, because you got to pay that truck note back or whatever. And it's an asset to them, because that's how they make money.
Okay.
It's just whenever the bank says credit, you think debit, and whenever the bank says debit, you think credit.
Why can't they just like, all right, QuickBooks, what is right, but you also like change it so that I understand it. Like,
all right, so let's
all of Intuit, make sure you change it so that Tersh understands it. Like, everybody else can just relearn it. Maybe that's just me.
I mean, if you, the interesting part about it is you think our assets are the bank's liabilities, and the bank's assets are our liabilities. So that's where the confusion generally comes in, is because people think our assets are their assets and our liabilities are their liabilities, and they're not. They're totally opposite. Yeah. And so that's where the confusion lies, because we go to the bank and make a deposit and they say, we're going to credit your account. And we think, credit, but not, it's our debit.
Yeah. And I was looking at, I'll tell you, I was trying to match checks and deposits for one particular account a week or two ago. And there were some, like a couple of the invoices were paid with a check, and a couple of them were paid with a credit card, and a couple of them were paid with direct deposit, like an ACH. And they all like matching them up. I was like, oh my God, like this is terrible. Like this is confusing. And like, if I didn't have the documents, like if I just like deposited a check and didn't have a copy of it and just chunked the tab, oh, I'd have been completely lost. I don't know.
Yeah. You always make a copy of a check, and I'll tell you exactly why. One of my clients, it's summertime and there's tons of checks and everything else like that. So the checks are about 1/4 of an inch thick. All right. I mean, it's a big company, a lot of checks.
Yeah.
And so they, the bookkeeper, who is very anal, makes a copy of all the checks. She also makes a copy of the cash. I'm not sure that's legal, but she does it anyway. She puts the adding machine tape on it and all the other fun stuff like that. So she goes to the bank with this big deposit, think about 1/4 of an inch of checks and all the other fun stuff.
Yeah.
And so a couple of days later, the bank says, we're debiting your account. Remember pulling money out?
Yeah.
For $8,000 and some odd dollars. And she's like, no. So she goes back to the deposit. She pulls all the checks out. I mean, she's pissed. Okay. Yeah. And sure enough, the exact amount of what they're going to take out of her account is one of those checks. Yeah. So she marches down to the bank. She has the deposit slip. She has the adding machine tape, and she has a copy of all the checks.
Yeah.
You lost a check. And the fact that she had copied it.
Yeah.
Was
otherwise you would just be out of luck.
$8,000.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And it had that already been debited out of the other person's account? I wonder.
Yeah, probably.
And so what reason I ask is because if I go back to the other person and say, hey, look, the bank lost your check. Can you put a stop payment on it and then give me another one? They're like, oh, no, it's already been cleared my account.
Yeah.
Like, oh, crap. We're out of luck.
Yeah, they lost a check.
Yeah, that's terrible.
We're all human, all right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But the fact remains is, had she not had that copies and the deposit chip, slip listing all the checks and all the other fun stuff and the adding machine tape proving the deposit did its thing, they would have said, I'm sorry, you just made a mistake in adding.
Yeah.
But
crazy story about checks. This has been a long time ago, but I had a technician who collected a check from a job, swears he put it in his folder, like the clip folder thing. He's like, he took a picture of it because it, like, we wanted a picture of it attached inside of our CRM, just so that we can prove that we had a picture of it, for the technician. And so he had the picture was uploaded. He put it in. He said, I swear I put it in my folder, and I cannot find it because he handed a couple of, turned in a couple of checks at the end of the day or whatever. And we're like, man, that's like, just keep looking around. Like, we searched his van and everything, and over the next couple of days, we were like just randomly searching it and searching around the office because he was like, I thought I just turned it in with this other stuff, and I was like, man, okay, I'll just call the homeowner. And so we called it. It was at an apartment complex, and or a condo setup or whatever. And I called it the condo owner, that particular unit's owner, and I was like, I'm really sorry, but could you put a stop payment on it and send us another check? And I just, like, that opens the door for never getting paid for the service call, because like they have to physically put a stop payment on it, which is usually like a $25 fee, which I offered to pay for. Yeah. And then they have to manually write another check and then mail it. And you hope that you get the check. And it was like for $200. So, I mean, it's not that it's not worth getting the money, but it's not worth like me driving across town and whatever. And then 6 months, maybe a year later, I mean, it was a long time later, this random person calls up the office and says, hey, I just Googled you, so I don't know if this is the right place or not, but I just found a check on the ground in the bushes at this apartment complex, and it's got your name on it, and it's to this $250 or whatever it is amount. Do you want me to? Do you want this? You want to come by and get it? And I'm like, no, that's like I'll come by and get it, but that's like that's they had already stopped payment on it, and that is the check. So essentially, probably what happened was it fell off on the ground and blew into the bushes whenever that technician. And I was like, dang, like that's where the check went. Cause like, I didn't really think about it, but every now and then I'd be like, all right. So like like I'm thinking about checks and like if that was an $8,000 check, I'd been over there searching myself, too. And like when I'm thinking about technicians collecting money, like where can they safely put this money so that it doesn't get lost in the process of things? Like even like I've thought about putting like little lock boxes inside of vans and stuff. So, you know what I mean? Just so security, like you could like get a slot right in the middle of it and just drop them in there, and only a manager has the key to it or something like that. I don't know, but
some things even simpler than that. Put a stapler on their truck.
That too. Yeah. But the problem is like now the guys, they don't, well, they don't that, and they don't have any other papers in their trucks at all.
Yeah.
So like, because all of our invoices are all on tablets. Yeah. And so, my guys, I don't even know if they have those little clipboards anymore because they don't need them because of the iPads and the iPad cases and stuff. So, I know some of them, they were like sliding them above their visor on their van, like with a little clip. I was like, I don't know. That's scary to me. But anyways, that's not what we're necessarily talking about here. But tell me about Financially Fit Business. What is that?
It is software that in 10 minutes a month, you can actually enter your data, get all the trends that you need to for your business, both profit and loss and balance sheet trends. So, there's some of you out there who are just starting, and it's like, okay, let's get real financial statements first, because if you don't have real financial statements, it's garbage in and garbage out. Others of you have your CPAs doing it, and your CPAs can just dump all the data in, and you can go over the trends with them rather than just getting a P&L or a balance sheet at the end of the month going, I don't know what this is. Yeah, at least you're going to be able to see that your business is headed in the right direction. And then there are some of you who are just like, okay, I can do this myself. Terrific. Go do the 14 graphs and enter the data and do all the calculations and stuff like that. I promise you it'll take you more than 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. It'll take a long time.
Yeah.
And then every month you might have to relearn QuickBooks.
Yeah. And so the reality of the situation is that I try to make it really, really simple so that you don't have to spend a whole lot of time. You can get your bookkeeper to enter the data, press the button, all the graphs come out from the standpoint of profit and loss, gross margin, net profit per hour, all of your liquidity ratios, everything you need, and it's all explained. So it's like, I don't know what that is. Well, click the little question mark and it will tell you what all of that is.
Does it anywhere on there, does it show you like that's good number, that's bad number?
Yeah, you'll be able to see if your trends are going the wrong way. Yes. I don't look at any individual number as being good or bad. All right. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So, the industry average, and I put that in quotes.
Air quotes, yeah.
For current ratio, which is current assets divided by current liabilities, things that are turned into cash within a year divided by things that have to be paid within a year. So it's current.
Yeah.
So the industry average is 1.8. And so let's assume you're at 3 and you're going, oh, great. The industry average is 1.8. I don't have to worry about it. Forget it. Next. So you go from 3 to 2.9 to 2.8 to 2.7. You're still above industry average, but
you're trending down.
Yeah, the warning sign should be going off in your head like, we have a problem here. We're becoming less profitable, or it's getting harder and harder to pay our bills. What in the world is going on? Yes, You're above industry average, but you're going the wrong way. Likewise, if you're like, you have to be over 1, otherwise you got cash flow problems, big time cash flow problems.
Okay.
Then you look at it, let's assume you're at 1.3. And then you're going to 1.35 and 1.4 and 1.45. You're headed in the right direction. I don't care if you ever make it to 1.8. You're headed the right direction. And as long as you're going in the right direction, that's what matters more than a number.
Yeah. So on there, though, is there does it color code it that you're going in the right direction or bad direction? Or is it just like, does it just tell you like?
Well, the graphs tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the liquidity graphs, they should be going positive for most of the time. The debt graph should be going negative. Your compensation graph should be, level.
Mm-hmm.
Your receivable days and inventory days, depending upon whether we're commercial or residential, change. That type of thing. But all that's in there. I wrote a 50+ page manual for all of it.
Oh, how to do it? Yeah.
But the reality of it is you can do it yourself. And my thing has always been that I'm one person. I don't have to do your numbers, but if I can show you how to do the numbers and you can do them yourselves and you take your business the right way, everybody wins. I mean, that's the way I look at the world.
Now, if you're looking at a graph and you see that it's going the wrong direction, does it tell you what you need to do to fix it? Or do we, I mean, okay.
It tells you where to look. It does, and you have to find out what's going on. And once you figure out what's going on, I'll say, look here, look here, look here, look here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume your current ratio is going down. All right, then you got to look at your profitable jobs. You have to look at, see whether you're productive or not productive, whether the guys are just spending too much warranty time. I mean, there's lots of different things that it can happen as a result of it, but it gives you places to look.
Okay.
And,
now, is there something on there that says you have too much office staff compared to field staff?
No, I don't do those KPIs.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I don't know. It's that because I often wonder. I wonder
what do I care about, Tersh? What do I care about?
Well, you want profitability and
exactly. I want to know what their net profit per hour is. All right.
Yeah.
In our industry, we generate revenue through billable hours. It's not through service. It's not through replacement. It's not through maintenance or any of those types of things. If we do not have a billable hour, we do not generate revenue. So we need to know for every billable hour, how much drops to the bottom line, our net profit per hour. I could care less about your percentages. I could care less about anything else. I want to know for every billable hour you have, how much profit are you going to make?
Yeah.
And you need to know that too.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. So what I think about is, I think that sometimes our numbers, I feel, this is a feeling. I don't know the numbers to back this up. I feel like there are times where our office staff we have too much office staff for the amount of technicians that we have. And then the technicians are being asked to generate more revenue or more profit to cover that overhead, that additional overhead. Whereas the overhead might not necessarily need to be there. Like you're just keeping people on because you don't want to get rid of the people. You like the people or you like the personality, you like the culture or whatever that they bring to the table. But they're not necessarily busy all day. Like they might be doing 2 hours worth of work in 8 hours or something like that.
And non-productive time, not good.
Oh, right. 100%. But then the numbers don't show that you're failing. But
yeah, they do.
if you got rid of them, then you would look more profitable.
Maybe, because sometimes you're going to have overtime because other people are doing their work. All right. So here's the deal. The compensation percentage, which says for every dollar you take in the door, how much you're spending on payroll and payroll taxes, everybody's field administrative needs to be under 30%.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. If it's not under 30%, why?
So that includes taxes.
Yes.
Payroll taxes and everything.
Yeah, it includes payroll taxes, the amount that you pay for FICA and Medicare, federal unemployment, state unemployment, and if you're a union, your union dues. And
so basically, whenever you click the ADP submit payroll, the amount of money that comes out of your checking account.
You got it.
What about the
other than medical?
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, like insurance.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Okay.
Because that's done out of the goodness of your heart. The feds don't make you do that. Feds make you take the payroll taxes. They don't make you pay for health insurance.
Gotcha.
Now, if you want people, you're going to pay health insurance, but feds don't make you do it.
Okay, so that's a good point. That's the number that I actually have it on a sheet right here next to me on the wall, and I'm glad to know that that's the number I've been watching, so I haven't been doing it wrong. But I wanted to know that because, like I said, I didn't have number facts. It was a feeling, and I think I believe as a business owner, as a person who talks to a lot of business owners, I believe that the feeling is the reason why they don't learn the numbers, because if they knew the actual numbers, they feel like they would get their heart broken. So it's like I'm living in denial. So as long as I don't know the numbers, then I don't have to feel like I'm failing at this.
until the IRS comes and said you had X number of dollars profit, we want our piece, until a customer doesn't pay you or one of their checks bounces and you got to do payroll. I mean, why put your head in the sand? It's so much better to know it.
That's so true. And what you're saying even talking to me as a business owner of multiple businesses, like I should know this stuff a lot more than what I even know. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it might just be easier for me not to know and just wing it for another month.
Well, why don't you just, get somebody, whoever your CPA is or whatever else it is, enter the data, look at the graphs. That's what you need to know.
True. Yeah, that's a very good point. And I'd love to. You sent me this stuff a long time ago.
Yeah,
it's been a month. It's actually August 2nd is when you sent it, and now it's what, September the 20th. Yeah, that's when it. So, but I'd like to. I would love to look at the Financially Fit business, the platform, because what it sounds like it is to me is we had this. She wasn't a CPA, she was a bookkeeper, and she did an amazing job. But she would every month send us a report, and it basically it would show trends, and we'd set our targets for the year and everything, but it would like color code how the trend's going. So like if I seen a yellow or a red, then I immediately focused in on, all right, that's trending bad. I need to make sure I'm looking at that one chart. But we kind of didn't outgrow her, but we kind of changed up some things, so we're not using her anymore. So it sounds like this would work even better than what we were doing back then, as far as quickly seeing those numbers. Because even myself, I can look at a P&L, and there's certain things like I know P&Ls and balance sheets and stuff, and I could see, but then also I can tell whenever it's like, obviously the pay, like percentage, like you get a thing after Julie's done with payroll, and she's like, hey, payroll is 45%. Like, what's going on? Like, what happened? Like, why did that happen like that? And then it's like freak out mode for 2 or 3 hours until we figure out what the number was put in wrong, or we spent a week at training for several people, and like no revenue came in that week, and so then I have a mini heart attack and figure out, so that's a good question. Segue to this question: how do you say, like, I know this isn't normal, but let's say that we're a smaller company and we have let's say 3 technicians, and we do this training that is 3 days, maybe 4 days. Let's just call it 3 days. And we put all 3 technicians in there those 3 days. And so we're paying those technicians 3 days worth of pay. The office staff is being paid 3 days worth of pay, but they can't book anything for those 3 days. There's no revenue generated those 3 days. What do you do in that circumstance? Because that's gonna grossly increase your percentage.
Okay, so what you want to know is, if we're sending 3 guys to training, and let's say the total training cost is $10,000, all right, and whatever the number is, we know if our gross margin is 40%, we know we have to generate $25,000 just to pay for that training.
Yeah.
All right. So what you're really going to look at is, you're going to say, okay, is this training going to give us $25,000 in additional revenue? If the answer is yes, and terrific, you send all 3 guys through, you send them okay, and say, okay, each one of you guys is let's make it 24,000. Each of you guys is responsible for generating an extra $3,000 in revenue as a result of training. How are you going to do it? And that's the way I would do it, because yes, there is no billable time when all 3 guys are there. And you're in a situation where your billable hours that particular week are going to be really, really bad. But you know why? It's not as if you could do anything about it.
Okay.
All right. So if it's a situation where they're sitting on their butts, that you can do something about.
Yeah.
It's called maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you tell them $3,000, how long of a time period are you saying? Like they need to.
We generally, I mean, if it's $25,000, they have to generate $3,000 more. I would generally say, an extra $1,000 a month. whatever.
Okay. Oh, I
You know?
got you. Okay. I got you. Okay. I didn't know if you were like, all right, you need $3,000 next week, or
No,
and then
no, that's not real.
oh, right. And so that's
You
why
do an
that's why I
extra
asked you.
$250 a week as a result of going to training. That means training will pay for itself in 12 weeks.
Mhm. Okay.
They either can or they can't.
Yeah. That's good, because there's times whenever I'm asked to send, they're like, hey, can you send me this training? And for me, I'm all about training. And like whenever I was coming up in the industry, if I ever asked the business owner, Fred, hey, I seen this training at the supply house. There was this, I found Alabama Power. Like, I live in Georgia, but Alabama Power put on this, training program, which was really cool. It was a week long, super in-depth training. It's like HVAC 101. And you did a pre-entry test to see a knowledge check. And then when you left, you did an exit knowledge check. And I was super proud. I was the best in the class. Like, I made a terrible score going in, and because I was really green, and I was probably 2 months into the industry, and Fred, like, I found it going to a supply house, and I was like, hey, Fred, would you pay for me to send me to this thing? And he literally paid me to drive there, let me drive a van, drove it across the state of Georgia into Alabama, paid for
Went to
me.
Birmingham.
Yeah. So you're familiar where it's at. And I was there for a week, I think, and the hotel, and paid me to do that. And, but so he never hesitated, but I learned a ton at that. I don't know if they still do it or not, but I
They
heard that
do pieces of it.
I heard that they don't do that in-depth thing like they used to do, which was really good for me. I don't know if it does for everybody else, but like, Fred never said no. If I ever came to him and said, hey, this supply house is doing a training, can I go to it? Most of the times they did it at night, which was fine. He would pay for it. No questions asked. But for me, like, I've never in the past said, all right, well, will it generate, will it help you to be able to generate X dollar amount in the future? I've just
Why?
always, I don't know. I've never thought about that. I mean, I've always been kind of the thought mindset of, if I don't train you, then you're not going to learn. And I don't want you to stay here not knowing. I want you to grow constantly. So it's my responsibility to train you. And I've never, I have felt like I need to do something like that, but I've never done that before. Like, I've never put it into the same wording that you just did, which I think is a great way to word it.
Yeah, the other thing that you look at, I mean, I do not care what somebody wants for wages, their hourly rate. If we're on the West Coast right now, they want like $50, $60 an hour. It's not unusual. But what we figure out is we want to know, okay, if you want $30 an hour, if you want $40 an hour, $50, whatever, if you want $100 an hour,
yeah,
this is what your truck has to generate in revenue. And we calculate that number based on the overhead cost per hour, the net profit per hour they want, and their $50, $60, $40, whatever else it is. And they have to be able to produce. I'm happy to pay you $50 an hour. You need to do X, Y, Z, A, B, and C every month. And we give them the weekly numbers. We give them the yearly numbers that their truck needs to do. Sign here. That means that if you're not making your numbers, we're dropping your hourly rate.
How long do you give them to not make their money?
No, they know every week. They know every day what they have to bring in. And depending upon the seasonality of the area that they're in, there are times that it's very little. There's times that it's a whole hell of a lot, excuse me.
Yeah.
More because it's busy or slow times. Now, the thing that you as an owner have to do is you have to make sure that the work is there.
True.
You can't
penalize them because they don't have work to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but are you, okay, so you're showing it to them every week, but how long do you give them? Like, if they're at $50 an hour. Okay. That's what, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
what's funny is that they take a week's of vacation and they get a goose egg.
Oh, shoot. That's a good point. And you still count that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's a good point, because my bleeding heart would be like, oh yeah, you're right. That doesn't really count.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because are you paying for their vacation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Duh.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Yeah. Because I had one, you mentioned that I had somebody who was sick a couple weeks back, and they had a migraine, like 2 days they were out back to back, and then that was on they came back on a Friday, and they came back on a Monday, and then that Tuesday they produced zero, like goose egg, like just goofed off all day, really. And so we had three, and they wanted to get paid for that day, and then they want to get paid for the 2 days they wanted PTO for the other 2 days that they had migraine, and so that wrecked their revenue for those 2 weeks.
Sure.
And like I had a conversation with them, but I didn't present it that same exact way, which is I like that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody I work with, all the technicians know what they have to do every day, every week, every month, and they're told.
Like, do you make it like a round number, like you need to generate $2,500 a day, or like is it a very specific number?
Very specific. Now it's not cents, but it's dollars. It might be $786. It might be, $1,522. It's not rounded. It's
Gotcha.
exact.
Now,
based on what their revenue, what their hourly rate is, the overhead cost per hour of the company, seasonality, and what net profit per hour they want.
So seasonality, you mentioned that, because that I feel like that could be, I don't know, like that could be negotiated or attempted to be negotiated with the technician. Like, oh, but we had a cool summer. Like it wasn't a hot summer.
I'm sorry, you get to make it up in the fall.
Okay. So like what, I guess my question is, what percentage are you, like, how are you figuring the seasonality? When does it start? When does it stop? And what's the percentage and that kind of stuff? Like how's that number calculated?
Because you look at prior year's revenues by month, by department.
Okay.
And you average them. Take the
so
last
what, okay. So, okay. Now let me say,
not COVID years.
Okay. Yeah. Not COVID years, but what if it's a new company, like they are just starting out, or they were one guy in a truck and they like just brought on a technician or something like that? Like, what would you say? Do you use like a rule of thumb, or?
Yeah, we use Ruth's best guess.
Okay.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious about that. Okay. So finish what you were saying though. But so like you look at the previous year's months, and then what do you do to calculate that though?
You've got that off their P&Ls, and then you look at it. You add the three, January for the past 3 years together, divide by 3, and that's the average for January, for this particular year. And then we figure out what the total is averaged, and then we divide so that we know 8% in January, or 5% in January, or 12% in July, 2% in December. It really kind of depends upon what their averages are. And you can use more years than that. I mean, as you get better and better and better at doing this, and the data becomes more and more and more accurate, you have better predictive capabilities. And the thing that I've always talked about, I don't know whether we've talked about it, is I want to know whether you're weather dependent or weather driven. And the two are very different.
Explain the difference.
Okay. If you're weather dependent, you pray for hot weather and you pray for cold weather, or you pray for busy times and slow times. Because the only time you make money is in busy or slow times. Mm-hmm. If you're weather driven, not weather dependent, but weather driven, that means in busier times of the year, you'll make a little bit more, but you have a baseline where you have all year long as a result of probably maintenance or something along those lines.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies I work with that after we get 3,000, and I know that most of the guys are small, and so you're looking at 3,000 maintenance agreement. Oh my gosh, I'll never get there. Yeah, you will if you want to. But we look at it, and when that first hot day hits, everybody says, "Oh, we're so busy, we're so busy, we're so busy," and we're going crazy. They're not. And the first time it happens, they freak out. And I look at them and I say, "Okay, why isn't the phone ringing off the hook?"
Yeah.
Because you've done everything necessary to take care of the problems before they happen. You're doing the right things with respect to going into their homes, educating the customer, giving them what they need, and letting the customer make an informed choice. so that when that first hot day or first cold day hits, you don't have to deal with it. Likewise on the plumbing side, you're in a situation where you're looking at the leaky pipes, or you're looking at stuff that's, cracked or whatever else it is. Take care of it before it, causes a major problem. And I mean, that's what maintenance is all about. It's making sure that the home obviously is in good shape. From the generator maintenance side.
Preventative maintenance.
No, you can't use the word preventative. You're going to get sued over that word.
I know that.
Planned, programmed.
Yeah, and then you make an amazing point there too. If you don't use the preventative wording on your documents either, because if you didn't prevent something,
you can't
from happening.
Prevent.
Yeah.
These are all mechanical systems. We have water going through them. We have electricity going through them. We have motors that die. Can you
set yourself up for failure?
Oh my God.
Yeah. That I don't say preventative maintenance, and I haven't for years and years because of a different reason. But I love that you mentioned that way too, because
I mean, go ahead. If you like being in court, be my guest. Use the word preventative.
No, and there are people out there that I guarantee you, and they're looking for it too. Because there's some people out there that they know the wording to get away with, to sue people. I mean, even if they're suing you for $3,000, they're still suing you.
One of my clients in Illinois, we didn't know this at the time, and I didn't know it at the time. In the state of Illinois, you have to approve the work. The work gets done. You have to approve the work, approve saying, yes, I'm going to get the work done, approve that the work was done. So this lawyer wanted to screw him, excuse me for saying it that way, and she didn't sign the pre-approval, and it was, a couple hundred, significant number of dollars, and she said, I'm not paying it. Nobody asked me to sign the pre-approval. Here's the law.
Yeah, people like that are just like, you just want to slap them.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it really does. And that's something that I'll give to so I've only used Service Titan and Sarah recently, but both of those platforms have that built into there. Yeah. So they have.
You want to know why? That's why.
I did not know that's the reason why, but I do know that there are times where we've had customers say, I didn't approve that, and then they have a signature on there that they approved it. The only thing that I wish all the CRMs did was somehow, I don't know how this would work, but force somebody to write their name below it, because some people's signature is just like a bat and just a squiggle. And then they're like, well, that's not my signature.
That's not my signature.
You did sign it. Like, we watched you sign it, and you're like, or it's just a line to it.
Be obnoxious and get you. I mean, there's those people out there who just are like that, and we run into them every once in a while. I've run into them. I'm sure you've run into them.
Oh yeah.
It's just like we do.
I'll tell you, I got sued by a guy who knew he was going to sue us before we ever called the service call, because it was a rental property. Water was leaking all over the floor. He called us to come out there. This is part on us too, because we gave a verbal pricing on putting a float switch in and replacing the drain line, and then gave another verbal price on flushing the drain line. And he was like, oh, I just flushed the drain line, and then don't put the float switch in. But there was no record of him declining the float switch or replacing the drain line. And it was in a closet, and the floors were already damaged before we got there. The hard, it was like laminate flooring underneath it in the next room over. And we took pictures of that. And then he called back 2 weeks later and said it's been leaking ever since we left.
Yeah.
And like, so you let it leak for 2 weeks and then kept it going. And it was like, yeah, but you didn't offer anything to prevent that from happening. So I want you to pay for all my flooring to be replaced. And like, your floor was damaged when we got there, and we know that. We took pictures of it, and our lawyers were going to pay them, like our insurance company's lawyers were going to pay them to do it. But we went to mediation, and we were like, no, we're not paying for this. Here's the proof of it. And the guy, it started at $5,000 and he negotiated down to $700. And the insurance company was excited to pay him $700. I was like, no, it's still a loss. Like, why would you pay the $700? This guy's a con artist.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we all get it.
Yeah. But yeah, there's reasons why these platforms ask you to do certain things. And yeah, it can be annoying sometimes, especially if you go in, you get a pre-approval for something, but then you get finished with it and it's a different price. Like it's like more amount. So you need to go in and you tell them it's going to be 3 pounds of refrigerant and they pre-approve the 3 pounds, but then you finish and it's 4 pounds of refrigerant. Then they need to approve the additional pound. Yeah, before you do it. And so that's another tricky one there for you. But why
are you putting 4 pounds of refrigerant in a closed system?
I was just using that example. We know that, especially the price of refrigerant. Holy cow, R22 is like $2,000 a drum.
Yeah, I mean, come on, let's be real here. We're not doing that anymore.
Oh yeah, we have people call us. They'll call around to all the companies. How much are you charging for 22? Like
no.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. Your book that came out September 5th. Kudos to you, by the way, for ranking number 1 on that. That's really awesome to hear. That's no easy feat for sure. Tell us about that book.
It's called The 101 Dumb Financial Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them. And quite frankly, thank you to all of my clients over the past 35 years for giving me the stories that are in that book. Because all of you have made a couple of those.
Yeah, right.
And so you can learn from their mistakes and not make them. It's not saying you won't make others, but it's very easy read format. You know, somebody asked me how they should read it, and I said in the bathroom.
Yeah, right.
Because you can read, a chapter is 2 pages.
Right.
One thing is 2 pages, and I mean, you can just do it whenever. But it's very easy to read. It's very easy. It's all stories. Names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Or the guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Where can people purchase it?
You can get it on Amazon. I've read it. You can get the audio, you can get the Kindle, you can get the book. If you get the book, inside the front cover, there is a little thing that you can fill out and you can send, take a picture of it and send it in, and they will give you a code to get the Kindle version free.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my publisher did that, which was kind of cool.
I have a love-hate relationship with Kindle because I get it. I get it on I have it on my iPad, and I'll start reading it, and then I'll get like a text notification. And I'm like, "Oop, text. Let's see what that text says." Or it's like,
you're on an airplane. You on a Kindle. I have news for you.
That is a good point. That is a really good point. Yeah,
that's what I do on airplanes. I read.
Yeah, and coming up here shortly, we'll be flying all over the country for like 3 months, going to these events and stuff. Yeah. Yep. Miss Ruth, I really appreciate you hanging out here. It's been an hour. I didn't even realize it's been an hour us talking here. And I hope that we get everything that you needed.
Sure. Okay. Absolutely. If you guys have any questions, you can either call me or you can go to ruthking.info. It has everything there and all the places you can go for the books and the manuals and all that sort of fun stuff. FinanciallyFit.business is there. But you can call me.
That's ruthking.info.
Yeah.
Not the other normal one, because it takes you to a different website.
Yeah, it's like the website where you just go and you can find everything else that I do. Rather than saying, okay, HVAC channel, Financially Fit Business, the books on Amazon,
Smart move. That's a smart move for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So huge shout out. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And I'm sure I'll see you in a couple of weeks whenever.
Yeah. I'll see you at least at Women in HVACR.
Oh yeah. In Jacksonville. Yep. That's exciting. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with us. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Miss Ruth. She's obviously, a wealth of knowledge and willing to help anywhere you can. Check out everything that she has, ruthking.info. And until we talk again next week, I hope you have a wonderful and safe week. And we'll see you later. Be good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn